Hi, I'm Kurt Zauer, and you're watching the Madness Comic Network.
First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first. till I die. And kill till I die.
Here we go.
Honeycomb's big. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not small. No, no, no.
Kiss my entire ass.
Oh, my darling, knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want me.
I'm gonna get a cappuccino soon. I'm gonna strangle somebody.
You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Listen to me very carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. Coffee. Black.
This town needs an enema.
Damn good coffee. The doctor is in, baby. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's a rainy day in Georgia. I'm here. You're here. Wherever you may be. We may as well have some fun with it. I'm not going to even beat around the bush about this thing, man. I got to bring in somebody. I need somebody like right now.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Gordon Shumway, nice to meet you. Interested in a new Buick?
Nonsense. I've not yet begun to defile myself.
I'll make you famous.
I'll make you famous.
Yes, he will.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Tanner Hurley of Gothic Press. Always scheming and dreaming, this guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, ain't that the truth?
He's plotting on Vin Diesel now.
Yeah. I want to make Riddick, you know.
Yeah. Listen, the answer is always no until you ask. Right?
Exactly. You never know.
Eventually, Hollywood is going to go, who is this Tanner guy? Why does he keep contacting him? We may as well do a book with him.
Eventually. I'm just going to wear him down, you know.
Yes, wear him down. That's exactly right. Just keep chewing away at that resolve, and you'll get him.
See, if the Army has taught me one thing, it's taught me that. Just keep hitting them hard. One barrage after another.
So it's been a bizarre week. I've been shadow banned. Shadow banned.
I know.
Now,
this is insane.
Let me break that down for you, those of you that might not know that term. Because I actually had a friend of mine go, "Oh, that's terrible. What does that mean?" Yes. Shadow banned is like if you own a brick and mortar store and you carry my product, but you keep it in the storage room. It's not out on the shelves and you don't tell anybody you got it. And you don't answer the question when they go, "Do you have it?" But you happen to know it's in the back room, so you can still go back there and get it. That's shadow banned. So there's that. And I want to thank all the people for their tremendous outpouring of support. A lot of folks went and signed up for the pre-launch. I've never heard of a pre-launch being shadow banned.
Yeah, it seemed a little different, a little odd.
Yes, very, very odd. Good morning, Charles. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, it's odd, and no notice from Indiegogo. No, we didn't like that. There's a naked butt in your video. She's not naked. She's wearing a skin tight suit. Yeah. This just in. I'm not wearing pants. Yes, I am. Just thought I'd have a moment. But look, also wanted to point out, Tanner, get your thoughts on this. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well,
finish that thought process.
Here's what I want to get your thoughts on.
Okay.
I mean, we all agree shadow banning sucks, so we can move on. The most state-of-the-art aircraft ever invented was sent to shoot down the most primitive aircraft ever invented. Your thoughts?
We were talking in the back, and we mentioned they used a missile to shoot it down, and I said, well, they had to spend that missile so that they could get 2 missiles the next year.
Exactly.
So I see it for what it is. It's government spending at its finest. Is it overkill? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Really you know this.
Really,
people out there listening know this.
I mean, literally, we could have just. What's up, Q? Good to see you, bud. We literally
my brother
could have just flown our cheapest aircraft, which is probably the T-26 trainer with a BB gun, and shot it down. Or got some Burt, but the Burts have been getting all the love, and I guess the Raptor needed some love. Now, who in the world is going to call me right now while I'm in the middle of Let me break a heart here real quick.
You're live.
I'm doing a show. Golly, everybody on the planet knows. They know. So, yeah, I mean, if you've absolutely positively got to wait until the balloon has done everything it's going to do, take all the pictures, gather all the EM, electronic warfare, countermeasure, blah, 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 and send it back to China and then shoot it down. You can always count on Uncle Joe. Now, I did listen to a congressional inquiry about it. And what they said was not only was it put. I like naked butts. Not only did they say, we didn't want it to fall on anybody, and I stand corrected. The thing was basically a satellite package that was being flown up under a balloon the size of 6 school buses. I don't know why we use that as a unit of measure, by the way.
Because you can visualize it.
Inches, feet, yards, school buses. They teach it in every class in elementary school. Anyway, we were afraid it would fall on somebody. Well, okay, Montana is pretty sparsely populated. All right, chances of that hitting somebody, I don't know. Anyway, then some lady said, well, actually, it was about being able to recover the package, for intel purposes. We didn't want to do it over the Bering Sea because it's kind of cold and deep up there. So, I could understand that. But again, Montana.
Yet they just shot one down over the Bering Sea.
Yeah. There's a guy that lives in the closet. He pops out every now and then. Just random shit like that. We can't stop him. Anyway, yeah. You could shoot it down over Montana, so let's wait for it to get out over the Atlantic, and then we'll shoot it down. So those guys came out of not Annapolis. Where is the freaking FBI Academy? Quantico. Shot it down. F-22s, mind you, transoceanic, transcontinental, multi-billion-dollar project, multi-million-dollar missile to shoot down a Dollar General Wile E. Coyote spy platform. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful world we're living in for today. I didn't even do our little thing, though.
Next, another interesting story that's in the news.
Stop it. Tried to do it twice. I only said once. Darn you.
But this one was only the unit measurement of a small car dock. It wasn't as big as a book.
Oh, okay. So, did we use F-22s for that one too?
Yes, we did. And we got it before it got in our airspace. Imagine that. Did somebody take a little bit too much shit last week and get it right this time? Oh.
2 kills. We were talking backstage, and I'm just here to tell you, I wouldn't want to be the pilot that got to paint a balloon on the side of my aircraft for a kill. It's just...
Oh, they're probably not allowed to paint anything anymore, knowing the state of the military.
Yeah. But the razzing he would get, in the ready room. Hey there, Ace, how you doing? Boy, you really put a move on that balloon. He never saw it coming.
Yeah, if it's a rainbow balloon.
The Wile E. Coyote freaking School of Spy Technology defeated the most state-of-the-art military in the world. That's all I got to say about it. Tanner, it is what it is. This is the world we're living in.
Yeah, that it is.
But here's the circle back around, as that redheaded woman used to say. What was her name? The press secretary that was just, I didn't think could get worse until they got this new one. Anyway.
Oh, I don't even know who you're talking about. Not gonna lie.
The press secretary, the red-haired woman that looked like Peppermint Patty from Charlie Brown. Anyway.
Talking about Jen Psaki.
Yeah, Psaki.
Her name sounds like somebody just threw up. Psaki.
Actually, I went and got a gyro at a place, and I said, "Can I get extra Psaki sauce?" So anyway, to circle back around, Pariah Blood and Mud is now at 115 signups. I called on Comicsgate, I called on independent creators, and they rose up. And my Twitter feed was just filled with people sharing the campaign. So thank you, everyone that did that. My gratitude is inexpressible. So thank you. Thank you for that. I just picture this. It's either a blue-haired, war-shaved side of the heads land whale, or it's a neck beard soy boy sitting at a computer going, yeah, I'm going to get rid of him because I don't like it. Because they did not send me a notice and say, hey, there's a problem with your sign up. Let's fix this. No. Since there's not a problem, because you haven't told me there's one, therefore there's not. Since there's not a problem with the campaign, that means there's a problem with me. And the problem with me, the creator, is you went and you looked on my social media and discovered I'm not part of the Rainbow Coalition. I don't support the foo-foo people. I'm not about rewriting the English language to suit your agenda. Therefore, you shadow banned me. Well, here's the thing about that. The independent comic movement, and Comicsgate in particular, exists just to fight that kind of shit. So, in attempting to hurt me, all you're going to do is help me. Just saying. Just saying.
If you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
That movie relates to everything. Well timed, sir. Well played.
I try.
So I went and I told my wife what had happened. And she goes, oh no, what does that mean? So I told her. And she said, well, what are you going to do about it? And I said, what do you mean what I'm going to do about it? I'm going to call on Comicsgate. Now, let me put this disclaimer out there. The Madness Comic Network is welcoming to all independent creators, whether you are Comicsgate or not. I am Comicsgate. And I think that's probably why they had an issue with me, because it says it right there in my Twitter bio. It always has. I support Comicsgate. I am Comicsgate. Come at me, bro. And they did. It's a little soy creature. Good morning, Michael Tanner. It is Michael Taylor. Wonderful to have you here. Michael has been faithfully watching the show, and I really appreciate that. No, we got to do this. I don't. Yeah, my head is already too large. Okay, I don't need it any bigger out there. So what we're going to do now, though, is we do have a good guest coming out a little bit later. Pops, have you sent this individual the link already, or do I need to do it? Not going to mention a name yet.
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. But what we are going to do is a little something that we like to call
Greetings, good morning, and salutations. I'm Tanner Hurley, and today's Great Moments in Comic History focuses on actually my first comic ever. It's a Charlton Comics, all new Ghostly Tales. Well, really, it's not just Ghostly Tales that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Charlton books entirely. What was neat about them is they were kind of like me. Yeah, fly by the seat of your pants. Okay, they had a printing press. I wish I had their printing press, but it was old equipment that used to produce cereal boxes and things of that nature. So it's a lesser quality print. And that can be seen because I actually have doubles of Monster Hunters issue 2. And hopefully you guys can see that. There's a difference in the coloring.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
See, I did not know that about Charlton, that they were using outdated printing equipment. Even back in the day, it was outdated.
It was outdated in the day, and they used that to cut costs. So, they could produce more and more. And then, aside from characters like Blue Beetle and Captain Atom that were sold to DC and went on to become, Justice Leaguers and JLA and Justice League Europe and all these other, stories that they've been in. They had all of these monster tales, and they would get creators like Steve Ditko. They would get, this one's one of my personal favorites. Tom Sutton was a huge artist for Charlton Comics. Here we go. Another Charlton.
Oh, nice. See,
the glare.
You didn't know the agony of being a kid at the spinner rack. There being more Charlton and Gold Key than there was Marvel and DC. Take down and make that decision, and you would go with Charlton every time because I didn't like Gold Key. And you cried when you got home, and it was a good story.
Yeah, they were good stories, and how they were able to get the artists and storytellers that they had was because let's see. Okay, they do have the code on them, but they didn't break the rules. But man, they would bend it to where they were almost touching, and they basically
just about matched the salaries that DC and Marvel offered. Because their production was kind of
yeah.
The art was bad. The art was really good in a lot of these. I mean, just some of the covers look like great movie posters.
Oh yeah,
but the production
beautifully painted covers.
Yeah. The cereal box printing kind of makes me wish I had cereal box printers.
Oh, I do too.
You said the magic word. You said spinner rack. I was playing Fallout 76 night before last, middle of the night, when I ain't got nothing, no shows or nothing. I'm playing the game, and look what I found, Doc.
Now, see, for a moment.
It's a freaking spinner rack, bro.
For a moment, I went, damn, did he actually find a spinner rack out in the boondocks like that? Look how good a shape that's in. Then I realized it was.
No, isn't that beautiful? I was just like, and that's after the apocalypse.
Man. Yeah, look how they survive. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a spinner rack in your home, you have a higher chance of surviving.
There you go.
Yeah, and never forget that screeching sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
off balance and shit. To be spinning on.
I would get in trouble at Eckerd's. I wasn't doing it to make the noise. I was shopping. Okay, that's what it's designed for. It's not my fault that my mother. You're disturbing the whole store. Stop doing that. I can't buy something just off this side. I got to look at all of them. So
yeah, you got to.
You wait for her to get to the other side of the store because it's not that we were safer back then. Parents just didn't care if you were kidnapped. You see, they could make another one look just like you and even miss you. So, oh, Spider-Man! That's just the way that works. I am so stopped up right now. I've got to get down in my chest voice to speak. I sound worse than Pops does, and he's had a head cold for a month. Where's our guest? He's got 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
He's
5,
late.
4, 3, 2, 1.
So while we're waiting on our guest to show up, and I don't want to spoil the surprise. I do want to say hi to Carol. Carol is Team Pariah. She is doing some color work for me. I want to say hello to Fanta, my love. She is.
Fanta, how are you?
She is the beautiful ghost that haunts the halls of indie comics creators. We love her dearly. We want to thank Michael for coming out. We want to thank Quentin for coming out. You guys rock. You're the reason we're here. But I want to bring out our guest. And the first time I met this guy, he was showing our stuff, and I was new to co-hosting CromCon. And I wasn't really having a good time because I didn't, Pops and I didn't know each other yet. We didn't have our our rhythm that we have now. This guy came out with his product, and I had so much fun laughing my ass off that I just had a ball. So let's bring him out. This is the creator of Dust Bunny Mafia, Mr. Bret Juliano. Pardon me, sir. I did not mean to associate you with any other figure. What's going on, bro?
Not much. How are you guys?
We're doing good. How are you?
I'm good. No complaints over here.
All right. Well, let's talk about all things Dust Bunny. Tell the people who might not know who you are and what you do a little bit about yourself.
Sure. As you've mentioned, I'm Bret Juliano, creator of Dust Bunny Mafia, which is a newspaper-style comic that's like Looney Tunes meets The Godfather. You've got this world of dust bunnies, rats, crows, little small creatures, kind of modeled after the 5 New York crime families. Kind of a heyday to, classic newspaper comics like Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes style. I've been playing in that world for about 10 years. Been doing the comics for that long, and I'm spinning off into, I've got full-length trade collections. I'm doing spin-offs based on a true story where I take real-life mobster stories and adapt them and give some history about what really happened. And yeah.
Absolutely. And you got something to show us so these guys can see how cool the dust bunnies are. Let me embiggenate you here. Here we go.
That's my first collection, Beat the Family. Like the classic trades of the newspaper style comics.
So how many pages is that?
132. See? And it's
132. There you go.
132 full color, 8.5 inch square pages, and you've got well over 200 comics. And each trade I come out with has a big story arc, as well as a bunch of back matter and a book exclusive story. So I've got 3 collections: Meet the Family, The Blind Tiger, which is a speakeasy prohibition story. Blind Tiger was a speakeasy back in Prohibition. And then my newest, It's Business Not Personal. I actually just launched a Kickstarter back in September for this and printed it and shipped them out a couple months ago.
It's not personal.
And this is actually one of my favorite ones. I created the book exclusive chapter is called The Sit Down, and it's a sit down with 4 mobster bosses. And basically they're basically trying to start, 2 of them are trying to start an outright war, and the other 3 of them are like, this is bad for business. Let's not do it. And so you've got, all sorts of mob bosses, and it's whole 50 strips. It's one of my longest, it's my longest mini story that's book exclusive. Can't find it anywhere else.
That's awesome.
I had a lot of fun writing it.
These guys are adorable. So how much I know that there's artistic license in the dialogue, because there would have to be. Do you lean it towards satire? Do you lean it toward humor? Or do you try to keep them in an authentic voice for the mobsters?
It's a little bit of both. I try to keep it without going super cheesy, so I don't try and go like 20s gangster.
Right.
I try and keep it more realistic, like how people would actually talk.
Right.
But I will throw in, based on my other interests, true crime. I've got a huge selection of true crime books that I read and podcasts that I follow. So I'll take things.
Now, do you know, or have you heard of Wayne Clingman?
Yep. Yeah, Wayne and I have talked a couple times, and he's actually trying to get me up to Milwaukee. I'm in Chicago, and so I'm trying to get up there for an event so we can actually meet in person if things work out right.
He seems like he would be a great source And you guys, I mean, what a natural match. For those that don't know, Wayne Clingman writes true historical documentaries about the mob, I think in Milwaukee and in Buffalo. Did I get that right, Pops?
I believe so.
Yeah. And,
yes, you got it right. The Buffalo Mob on Amazon right now, by the way.
Yes. And he does a deep dive into this stuff. But I wanted to Stephen Brushed, for those that might not know, is a best-selling author. He's been doing the Vlad Taltos series since the 80s. And his main character is a mobster in this fantasy world. And he researched a lot of mob stuff as far as how they operated, how was it profitable, and then the protocols between the different tiers. So, like, if I invite Bret, he's the head of one faction, I'm the head of another, we will go and have a collegial dinner together to see if we're really going to go to war with each other or not. And, the rule is I have to stay seated while he comes in. I invited him, so I get to order the wine. He gets to order the entree. We don't poison each other, but we do have our enforcers sitting around us. All of these little etiquette things that the mob has to do.
You don't bring weapons. They're all checked at the door.
Yeah. So obviously, Bret, you're bringing some of that into, like with the sit down. That's going on. That shit fascinates the hell out of me. They came up with all these rules. One of which was, and he adapted it from the Five Families. You don't hit a guy in front of his wife and kids, and you don't hit a guy when he's in church. You wait for him to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they broke that rule, but that was a rule. You leave him alone. You don't mess with him when he's going in to get right with God, and then you get him when he comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is, how violent do the Dust Bunnies get?
It's mostly off screen. I mean, it's slapstick humor, and so I make it all ages friendly. So I
more like a innuendo, or
it's there's a lot of wordplay, and when they talk about whacking someone, they'll hit him over with a baseball bat, and then they'll see stars, or like
right.
The very opening comic that I have, the Dino, he's this little purple dust bunny, and he's it opens up the whole strip, and he's basically the mob's accountant for the Dust Bunnies, and he's been caught in stealing from them, and so he opens an email that says Dino wanted for murder, and then 10 years later he's still in the strip. He's just moved to different families, and he keeps passing off himself as being able to. Thanks, James. He just convinces other families to take him on. People know, all the characters know he's a risk, but maybe he can give us something a little extra, even though he's wanted by the Dust Bunnies and the Rats, and now he's with the underwater crew. And
what got you into this, Bret? How did you get this? Where did the impetus for this come from? Because it is so
I was going to ask that.
Cool, but so bizarre at the same time.
So I've always had an interest in like the criminal mind, and honestly, I remember in doing reports in school on we had to do something on World War II, and but we could choose like anything in that area, and I did the Gestapo, the secret police for the Nazis, and we had some other there were some other things that I remember in high school doing a big thing on the Great Gatsby, and
very nice.
Yeah. And so that was a big inspiration, and something that I loved the writing. I loved the period piece. I loved the historical. And then once I started to dig into it, there's a lot of bootlegging implications and, some organized crime layers to it, even though that's not really the surface of it. Right. But there's some of the different characters, Meyer Wolfsheim, that he meets, that's he's definitely a mobster. There's no question with the seedy jazz clubs and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I'd always found that criminal aspect interesting. And honestly, I don't even know, there wasn't a one thing that this was it and that I can narrow it down to. but yeah, I was living in LA at one point and was working my day job, and I started taking the train to work, and so I had an hour in the morning and evening. That's cool.
Oh
wow. I had an hour commute, and I was on a big commuter train, and so I had time to do my comics and stuff. But the problem was, and I had been writing my comics, come up with the idea, and I went to the bookstore and found a book called Five Families that was basically the history. It's like the Bible when it comes to the New York mob, and it's this 800-page behemoth of a book that I found for $10. And I'm like, because I can't always pull out my laptop and illustrate because we're on a commuter train, and you know, so I was like, I'll take this and as a way, and that helped fuel, the comics.
All right. So we've got the interest and the appetite for the crime stories and the criminal mind, but then at some point they get married to dust bunnies.
Yes. So I realized I left out that part. So I was at one of my day jobs before, it was a couple of years before I picked up the book, and I was fresh out of college, working, didn't have many hobbies. I was living on my own. And I was like, I had a graphic design background. I knew how to build websites. I do software engineering, but I didn't want to do any of that stuff, in the evenings after I got off work. So I'm sitting in traffic in LA on a Friday night, and the back of someone's license plate says DBM. And this is, 2010-ish. And so iPhones were not prolific. And, I was playing the license plate game, or what could that stand for? And I thought Dust Bunny Mafia. And so I wrote it. I found a little scrap of paper, and I wrote Dust Bunny Mafia down. And then I had 2 hours to sit in traffic, and I literally started formulating these different Dust Bunny characters and what roles they could have. And so I came up with essentially the first 6 of these characters came up through that. So I ended up coming up with the only ones I didn't have were these guys and the big one. But the rest of them I had come up with during my during that drive as kind of all right, this one's the boss, this one's the enforcer, this one's the strong and silent hitman, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Write it down, boys and girls. When an idea hits, don't say, I'll remember that later. Write it down. Tanner.
I was curious, how much is based on historical accuracy or, true life? And then how much is, the slapstick, stuff, the creative, mind at play?
Well, for my trades right now, those are pretty much my own inventions, and it's very little based on real stuff. But based on true story mini collections, which I don't have any within reach, I put those up on Kickstarter, and so they're little half sheet collections. And I am kicking myself because I've got a whole closet full behind me. But
ain't that always the way?
So, yeah. But they're, 40 pages, most of them, little mini collections. And each one of them has, it's a story that I adapted, I found interesting. I adapt it, and I give a blurb about what really happened. And so those ones are, it's not always easy finding the truth when, what happened to Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
That's still a big, odds are you're not going to find him you're not going to find him. You're not going to find his body. But, there's, at least 10 to 12 different theories on what really happened to him.
Sure.
Whether he's buried in, some Detroit under some overpass or underpass kind of thing, or he's, out in Vegas, or he's crushed up in a car,
Yeah. We're never going to know. And that, of course, gives a lot of creative license for what happens, you know. Now, in addition to the books, you have merchandise, don't you?
I do. So I threw in the private chat. I don't know if I can do it in the public, but so there's my link tree that has link to my store, to my Kickstarter pages.
Pops, bring that up for his store, if you don't mind. I see one of the figures behind you back there on your bookshelf.
Yes.
I think that that's the one you showed on the Comic-Con when you came out, and I was just tickled to death over this thing and over the idea. What a genius idea, you know.
So yeah, back there are all my crochet figures that I've gotten done, and basically I had seen someone at a convention that was making crochet like Cthulhu and, you know, some pop culture things, and I'm like, hey, I've got these illustrations, would you be up for, you know, doing one for me? And I'm like, I don't want to sell it originally. I'm like, this is just for me, I'll put it on my table, that kind of stuff. And they're like, sure. And so I worked one out, and then throughout the years I've started to get more and more of them, and I've got pretty much all the Dust Bunnies now, and I've started spinning off into some new characters. And so just recently I've started getting actual stuffed animals made.
Plushies rule.
Oh, nice.
Look at it.
So that's Kenny. He's the like the hacker version of one of my Dust Bunnies. And so because I play with modern and classic with my comics, kind of blend like Gotham used to.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So there's Leo, the boss. This one actually was just a one-off. My stuffed animal artist determined he would be a little bit too difficult for what was practical cost-wise. So she made one as a prototype, and then said, "Oh, you know, you pay me for it, and I'll give it to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then this is one of my favorites. This guy's known as Vinny the Chin, and he's actually one of my based on a true story side. So he's a chinchilla, and as you can see, he's in a bathrobe because he was Vincent the Chin Gigante was a New York mob boss that basically had a crazy act. And so for years, he was the boss of this New York crime family, but he would go out in public unshaven. He'd wear a bathrobe. He'd talk to parking meters, and he lived this crazy act. He would check himself into mental hospitals, but he had a clause in his like letter of demands, basically said he can check himself in and check himself out at any time.
Right.
And he would do that in order to like duck an indictment and stuff. And so I made a chinchilla based on Vinny the Chin.
That's epic. I love it.
One of my newest that will be first. I have a limited number of them on sale on my website.
Nice. Now there was a story. Is Vinny the Chin the one? There was a character, a real life character in Prohibition, went to jail for running. His scam was he would send his trucks out with the medicinal, and then have his own guys hijack it, and then he would bootleg it. He got caught, went to jail, but then when he got out, or while he was in, his wife cheated on him. So when he got out, he killed her, and the jury found him innocent because he was crazy. Was that the Chin?
That was not the Chin. I'm trying to remember who. I've heard that one. I just don't know off the top of my head which one. There were a lot of crazy ones during Prohibition that were doing some things like that, where they hijacked their own trucks. And but Chin was actually one of the more modern ones. So he was born, I want to say, in the late 30s, early 40s. And he actually was So he was a boxer in his young days. He was this fit Italian guy. He did, and he actually like performed an attempted hit on Frank Costello, who was a big New York mobster in the 40s and 50s. Attempted hit, and he ended up actually botching the hit because he came into the lobby of this Waldorf Astoria hotel in New York and said, "This one's for you, Frank," and turned around and shot him, only for Frank to turn because he called out his name. If he would have just come up to the back of the head, he probably wouldn't have put the bullet. Went around the skull and came out the back, and it just kind of grazed, and yeah. But the Chin ended up in the 60s, 70s. He was the boss of the Genovese crime family. And so he actually went to jail in a big racketeering indictment in the 80s. So,
oh, wow.
And he actually just, yeah.
What do you think about the Many Saints of Newark? I was a little disappointed, says Michael Taylor.
To tell you the truth, I didn't watch it. I never could get into The Sopranos. I've probably tried to watch it 2 or 3 times, and I've gone through 6 or 7 episodes. And I say if I can't get hooked in like half a season, it's not worth it. So
I'm with you.
You give it more than me.
Wow. Right away if I'm going to invest my time, because I'm old and I don't have a whole lot of that left. So if I'm going to invest my time in something, it better be good. And Sopranos is great, but I'm like you. I tried 3 or 4 episodes. I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. But that does lead me to ask now, what in pop culture about the gang world do you like Goodfellas or Godfather or?
Godfather, number 1. I enjoy Goodfellas. Casinos, a little for me. I enjoy, The Departed.
Departed was good.
Some of, there's a couple other like indie, Lucky Number 11 was like a sleeper indie film that was really good.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, Casino, I don't know. That's another one where I like parts of it, but overall it doesn't have as much of a plot. I feel like as Goodfellas, and
not all that great, but the individual scenes were really well done.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Let's see, what was the other one? The Irishman. That's
that was. I like The Irishman.
I personally don't think Scorsese can do a bad film. That's just me.
The one thing I wish is that for The Irishman, I wish they would have brought in some other actors, some younger ones, to play the younger characters. Instead of having the old guys with the de-aging CGI. Because it's like, there's some things where it's just like, you can't have an 80-year-old doing some of the stuff, acting like a 40-year-old. And you can tell on screen that's like when the guy's kicking that like flower guy. That's exactly it just doesn't look realistic anymore.
Yeah, when he goes in and curb stomps the guy, it's like, come on, man. Get a younger actor for this and then transition him. Also, not many 80-year-olds have a 12-year-old daughter,
Yeah.
But again, nothing can be as bad as Velma, so let's remember that. We shall henceforth use that as the standard for all things bad. Not as bad as Velma.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at that point in the show, Brett, where we open the phone line, so to speak. We're going to throw the link out. Let people come in and talk to you and ask questions, or just come in and hang out with us for a little bit. But if you want to find Brett, his link is posted. Find his work. This is some really good fare, lighthearted, but grounded in some really intricate stuff. So if you like, first of all, if you like cute characters, boom. If you like mob lore, boom. If you like, for some reason, the marriage of those two things, who'd have thunk it? Very cool. Kind of like you said, Brett. The old Warner Brothers Looney Tunes where they would do the mob stuff.
I was thinking about Tiny Toons where they had the 3 pigeons.
Yeah.
Animaniacs.
Yeah, Animaniacs. God.
Yeah, the Good Feathers.
The Good Feathers. Yeah.
Are you beaking to me? What are you saying? I forgot all about those till you said that, Tanner. Good Feathers. Remember when the God Pigeon would come by?
Yeah, and they all go to Central Park, and it's a Scorsese statue is what they congregate on.
Yes. Are you cool?
Yeah, actually, in one of my books, I have this. One of my the main detective in my comics is a pigeon, and he's this knockoff of Dick Tracy style, and so he's got yellow fedora and all this, and he ends up trying to this mini story I've got in one of my collections is the spider, who's a reclusive mob boss. He's behind the scenes, and he ends up putting a bounty out for one of his goons to catch the pigeon detective and bring him in. And at the end of that little arc, they're like, we got him. And they're goons, they don't do anything right. So when he gets down there, it's revealed that he got the wrong pigeon. And so I do have an appearance by one of the good fellas that I throw in there as a nice little parody nod to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. That's Good Feathers. Is that right? Wasn't that their music?
I don't remember, honestly. I remember bits and pieces.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Watched it. I'm old, so my son was growing up on that stuff. And it was that, by the way, that's back when I was doing comics in the 90s. And so I'd be in my studio working, and my son be in the living room watching that shit, on the big hatchback TV. All right, the link is pinned. Get on in here, Q. Come on in, Carol. I know you're sick, Carol. Well, that's no excuse. I'm sick. Pops.
Come on.
But we're still rocking and rolling. Pops, also, it is that time of the show where we roll a few commercials so folks can see some of the other things that we're highlighting here and refresh their coffee. So play us a couple of commercials there, Pops.
till I die. And kill till I die.
And we're back. My co-host is not. His kitchen is further away than mine.
I know, right? Good help is so hard to find.
He'll come back with that eat shit grin and a fresh cup of coffee. Yeah, we do. We gotta get a trailer out for you, Brett. And you're just make one of those.
I'm working on it. There's a million things to do with upcoming Kickstarters.
Always.
What I miss?
Always more to do. We were talking shit about you.
Oh, okay. That's get in line. I mean,
you would come back with an eat shit grin and a fresh cup of coffee.
Gotcha, bitch.
I will sleep just fine tonight. Thank you.
Yes, I had a question for you, and I asked. Oh God, what was his name? I'm so terrible with names. Wayne. I asked Wayne about the cartels, so I'm going to ask you. You obviously weren't afraid to go for the Genoese or the Sicilian or the Italian stereotypes with the five families or the other mafioso. What about the cartels? Are we going to see some cartel action in the Dust Bunny Mafia in the future? And are you afraid of the Latino stereotypes because of the current political environment out there right now?
I mean, right now, there's so much good stuff I can do with the Italians. Between, even, the stuff that's semi-current, and because I'm in my based on a true story booklets, I will throw in some stuff that's even more like stories from the 2000s, where there was still lingering. 2008 was the last, the big New York, the big Chicago. There was a family secrets trial, and so that wasn't super long ago. Some of those, people are still alive that were indicted in that. So that kind of closed the book on the big Chicago mob, but I'm not hiding anything, and so there are still relatives of the Chicago mob that are around, and so, but I'm doing it in a lighthearted manner, and right now, no, I don't have any interest in branching out. I've got enough just with the Italian, Irish.
We're going to leave the Russians alone, a little bit of Irish, but even the Jewish mafia exists. Or I should say mafia. What would one say? There is you name it, there's a crime family for it. Environment out there, including, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, Brett, if you've ever heard of the Red Clay Mafia. Red Clay Mafia is the Deep South. The remnants of the old rum runners, and these are just old rednecks.
There's a Dixie Mafia.
Yeah, the Dixie
I don't know if that has any ties to it, but
the Red Clay is just one of the families of that. One of them, and it's in the public news. Back in 1984 or 86, I don't remember. A young man was murdered gruesomely. His body was hidden down a well, and they just recently broke the crime. And one of them was a deputy sheriff now, and his dad, and they were in fact tied up in the old Dixie Mafia.
Wow.
And, they have their own stupid set of rules that are nowhere near as elegant as, if I can use that word, as the five families are. White trash organizing itself into a crime family. That's what you get. And now
a bunch of moonshiners.
Well, that's what story is really fascinating about it. It's the key term is organized crime.
Yes. Yeah.
It's how they and probably the same thing that fascinates you, Bret. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's how they came together, how they made up these rules, how they, it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating,
If you think about it, and Bret touched on this, even in the German SS in the 30s when the Nazis were coming to power, you don't think they got in bed for fighting? Look, where did the money come from a broke nation to suddenly start building the BF-109 and the Panzers? If you don't think that there was a little crooked nose shit going on there, you were asleep at the wheel, baby. So I don't know, man. There's a whole interesting world out there if you scratch a little bit beneath the surface. What are we looking at, Pops?
Can't hear you. You're muted.
I mean, obviously beautiful art. You're muted, brother.
Sinopa Publishing. He's in the chat.
Yes. And that is a stunning piece of art.
And who is that? Who's that by?
You'll have to. Sam's gonna have to tell you, because
Sam, tell us.
I have way too many people in my head to remember shit anymore.
But that is just beautiful artwork. It's not often that I, as an artist, am jealous of someone else's art, but damn, man, I wish I had drawn that. Cover art from Tibby and her time-traveling psychedelic mushrooms, issue number 1.
Damian Torres.
Sounds like somebody went to the Max DeVille School of Titling Books. That's all I'm going to say about that.
You just leave that alone. Is there, in fact, a CG Mafia? Unfortunately, Carol, I think there was, and they're not really in favor right now. That was the war campaign people. But what do I know? I showed up after all that was over with, and I had nothing to do with it. My hands are clean, Bret. I tell you.
One of the. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
One of the interesting things that Tanner said that reminded me of a quote.
I'm no artist, Michael. I'm not an artist, dude. I just run a network and bring people together. That's all I do. That's the artist.
Go ahead, Bret.
There's a great quote by Lucky Luciano back in kind of the end of his days when he was exiled in Italy. He had a quote where he basically says that these days people have a license to steal. If I could go back and I would go the legitimate route and apply and do things like a CEO and then funnel my make my millions that way.
Yeah, and it would be legal even though it's the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, everybody always asks Wayne this question, so I'm going to throw it at you, Bret. Was there a dust bunny on the grassy knoll?
I do believe that there were. There's pretty extensive theories out there, and I've seen quite a bit of evidence. So I'd say that there are some ties to organized crime with all of that. I mean, between Kennedy, Cuba, there's Chicago with Sam Giancana ties that go into Vegas. I'm actually just listening to an audiobook right now on Killing the Mob by Bill O'Reilly, and it goes through all the big, it goes from the early days of bank robbers with Dillinger and the Barker clan and, all of those, and just kind of chronologically goes through. And I've just been listening to the part about Sinatra's ties with Giancana and who was the boss of the Chicago mob in the 60s, pretty much, 50s and 60s. And I've done enough research that I'd like to say there's definitely some ties that wasn't.
So to twist this back to the bizarre, which dust bunny would be on the grassy knoll? Which of your characters would be the one? If the dust bunny said we gotta help this little Lee Harvey fella out, who would be on the knoll?
Well, it would be a toss-up between my main enforcer, Frankie, the big black guy in the middle. He would be applying the pressure, and if Lee couldn't do it, then Vic would be the one on the knoll. So he's the sharpshooter of the gang. So
there you go. See, confirmed.
And just have him be a patsy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Never dig into this if you want to maintain your sanity, is what I'm saying. This is obviously what happened to Bret. He dug too deep and blew a brain cell and came up with a stroke of genius with the Dust Bunnies. My gosh, let's see. What do we got here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic piece of art. Now, any plans in the future for some animation?
I would love to. That's beyond my skill set. And so, I mean, it's funny because my father-in-law always jokes about if he wins the lottery and, he'd do these things. And I'm like, yeah, if you win the lottery, you're funding my Dust Bunny movie. And,
yes.
You can be executive producer or something. We'll figure out a credit for you. But I would love to get it picked up either for a movie or like a, Netflix series or something, one of the streaming platforms. Animaniacs made a comeback on Hulu.
Yeah.
I can't say I like this one as well as the old.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I would love to actually someday get to it. I'm trying to branch out.
Yeah, let's hear it from the Dust Bunny movie. I'm down. I would support it 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Who all right, putting you on the spot, Bret. You have to cast now your characters. It's casting time. So who plays who?
Problem is, some of the good ones are dead.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, can't exactly do Brando.
Right.
But, I mean, Pesci would be a great boss. I mean, well, since they're just voice actors, doesn't really. I mean, there's a lot of good talent that came out of, The Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire. So there's a couple of people. I mean, I would love to get even some of the, what's his name? Tom Hardy, because for his role in like Peaky Blinders and stuff, he'd probably be a good one of my Crow mobster characters. There's, I can't remember his name, but he had a big part in, he's a newer guy. He was in The Irishman, tall, big.
I know who you're talking about.
He made his debut kind of in Boardwalk Empire. But I can't remember his name.
You got to find a femme fatale in your universe for Marissa Tomei.
Heck yeah.
I got to throw this out there. I love mob movies, but I got to say my all-time favorite is Oscar with Sylvester Stallone, where the mobster tries to go clean.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't make
it. It was a comedy, right?
It was a comedy, and it was hysterical. And it had everybody in it. And if you haven't seen Oscar, go see it. The name of the movie comes from a character that never even appears. He's the chauffeur that's been fired. He's not even there anymore. And the mobster's daughter is in love with him. And I got to say, Stallone killed it as a mob boss. You wouldn't have thought it, but he did a great job. And he's doing a good job in Tucson.
In Tulsa?
Tulsa. I don't know why you argue with me, Bret. Damn it.
Because I watched it. No, I actually enjoyed that one. That one's pretty good.
Yeah. I love how he goes and insinuates himself into his first business. That's almost beat for beat what happens in the Vlad Tellto's books. Again, a fantasy world where there's an actual mob. You would have never thought. You have these noble knights who are disgusted by the fact that this mob exists, and they talk about the Dragon House, which is the great knights and all this stuff, and then the Jureg House, which they're scavengers, so that's their mafia. And it said when they went to war with each other once, both houses were almost wiped out. This one general went in and he burned down a whole town, and then the Jureg sent assassins after every general and started working their way down their chain of command, assassinating people. So it was, oh yeah, De Niro. Oh, I would have a good mob voice. I don't know, man. I've never tried a mob.
I can work you in there.
Yeah, I've done voice
part.
I did commercials when I was young on the radio here locally to pay some money to get through college, and so I've done a lot of voices and voice acting, but I don't know if I've ever done an Italian. I don't know. The thought tickles me. That's all I can say.
So you're saying I can hire you to do a little voice snippet for a Kickstarter in the future?
Oh, absolutely.
A little voiceover
for several folks, and I'm happy to do that for you. Let my nose unclog so I can get off my chest voice and inflect with my nostrils just a little. I'm so stopped up.
Oh no.
I can't. We've got Crom, our little character. Yeah, and Crom, he yeah, listen, morons. You're watching the comic-related madness. He's even hard to do. But yeah, I would be happy to do some work for you, Bret. Just reach out anytime. Anything I can do to help my fellow creators. So I'm fascinated by the idea of this. I mean, yeah, Suicide Kings was good. And I liked, was it the Knockaround Guys with Vin Diesel?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that one. I liked that one a lot. That was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me that I like mob movies because I can't stand thieves. But it's just, like you said, it's fascinating to get inside their minds, their culture, because it is there. They have their own rules, the Omerta, and I forget what they called it, where you don't touch somebody on holy ground or at a church or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's still, one of their rules. They had, there was the same thing. They don't kill cops. Right. They knew they were their adversaries, but you don't actually kill them. You can try and, detain them. And, if they got a scuffle, they try and get out, but you don't kill.
Them, but you don't, because it brings too much heat.
Same thing with attorneys and news reporters. Big no-no.
Yeah, they're there's a word for it though. Damn it, I'm blanking on it. Don't touch them is the Italian. You don't touch them. Wow. Chat, help me. The chat always knows everything. They do. You can ask the chat anything, and they'll come back with an answer. You don't mess with cops or lawyers or judges or reporters. You don't hit somebody in front of their wife or kid. And it used to be, if they were at home, they were safe. But once they were on the street or anywhere else, you could get them. So you didn't get them at home. You didn't. Damn sure you didn't touch them in front of their wife or kids. But they were fair game the second they walked outside. Now that didn't mean. There was one story where assassin was hired to put a hit on somebody, and this wasn't in America. This was in Italy. This was in Italy. They couldn't get him because he wouldn't leave his house, so they contracted his own wife, and she poisoned him. And she lived happily ever after somewhere else.
I think I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah. And there was a trope that when if a hitman was successful, he always took a vacation Just get out of town for a while. Atlantic City, Vegas, the Caribbean, somewhere. Get the fuck out of town for a while until they can figure out if the police were going to get a lead or if the opposing faction would get a lead on them or not. And then if they didn't and it looked clear, they'd just send them a telegram or a letter. Come home. You can come home now. So yeah,
Capone wasn't in Chicago when the St. Valentine's Day massacre occurred.
Right. And the FBI commented, no, I'm sorry. I'm mixing that. That's fiction. Tom Clancy commented through one of his characters. I think it was in The Hunt for Red October, the fictitious president, who was supposed to be Reagan, but he was actually a prosecutor in his former life. He said that the Politburo reminded him of the five families, where they could cry at an opera and then turn around and order the hit on 20 people without breaking a sweat, So that culture and the mindset and their rules and how strict they live by them. In your research, Bret, did you come across any of the resistance from the families for getting into drugs? We've seen that in fiction. And I meant to ask Wayne that, but I didn't. They didn't want to tell me stuff.
It's an interesting thing. A lot of times they'll say, don't touch drugs. But they knew that drugs were a big earner. You could make a whole lot more money in drugs than you could in gambling and extorting people, prostitution, all the other, major rackets. But the problem was that it's when the greed of getting the money and having the money just blow, when that is like, I like earning and getting that kicked up, that the bosses would usually, turn a blind eye. They wouldn't ask what you're doing to get that. But the problem was that the more traditional, old family values bosses that were like, we're going to run this like a business, knew that they didn't want to pollute the waters of their neighborhoods, and that's what drugs would do. And so it's like the only reason, and that's actually one thing I don't even touch in my scripts, because I try and write it family friendly for kids.
Oh, sure.
And so it's like, I've had one reference and I did it and it was like in a anthology project that I was a part of. So it was like my Dust Bunny characters, I had 4 pages in this other thing that's, kind of related. They make an appearance and they were selling, I turned it into jelly beans. And so I said, I turned it into something else and had someone trying to sell these, and one of the characters slapped it out of his hand, being like, no, we don't get into that. And then that's the only time I've referenced drugs of any sort in my comics.
Perfect. I was going to say some kind of nasty cheese or whatever, that they just don't touch it. But yeah, I remember that I saw that I don't remember which movie it was or TV show, but I read up a little bit on it when I was in college for criminal justice about how drugs became pervasive. It was, a couple of the mobsters said, look, it's going to happen. At least we'll regulate it, and there was a theory that the FBI and then the DEA kind of said, we'd rather have these guys doing it than the gangs, the street gangs. Because they'll police it, they'll keep it cleaner and whatever. But obviously, that's gone by the wayside because the cartels are bigger than the mob, and they said there's money in them, their drugs, and we're going to just get all of it that we can. So,
back in the late 50s, I want to say it's like 57, there was a conference in Havana before Castro came to power and everything, in which Lucky Luciano had been exiled already from the U.S., and he came back and was living in Cuba and helping. That was when, the U.S. was starting to get big into going. Florida was going down into Cuba, and they were going on the weekends and going to gamble and going to these nightclubs and everything. It was kind of the heyday it was an easy vacation spot because it was only, 2 hours away by boat, and it was a really quick trip. And
Right.
they had this big conference with Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Frank Costello, all these big name mobsters of the time, and where Luciano was trying to get back. And he's like, I don't know that I can get back into the U.S., but if I just stay in Cuba, I'm good because it's, a different country. And that was one of the things that the other mob bosses were trying to propose, was getting into drugs at that point and saying, and that was one of the big hot topic discussions of, we can make a lot of money and we can regulate it if we do it right. And Luciano was completely opposed.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
that was the Luciano, the character Johnny Rocco, was based on him from Key Largo. He'd been in exile in Cuba and he was returning. He was coming back. Of course, they didn't mention the drugs, but it was a thing, that Cuba was just a safe place to go for the mobsters. And Luciano, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he live out his life down there?
No, he actually made it back. He went back to Italy.
That's right.
So he was, and then some of the U.S., the FBI, and J. Edgar Hoover basically got wind that he was in Cuba, and they're like, okay, we're going to come down and get him, even though he's not, or they were going to find a way to work with, when Castro came to power, that didn't help. So they were pushing the mobsters back to the U.S. And so somewhere in that late 50s, he ended up going back. It was enough political power that he was like, nope, it's getting too hot here. And so he just went back to Italy.
Yep.
But yeah, he did live out the rest of his life free.
Yeah. And wow, there's just so much more to get into. But
I know.
It is that time, folks. We got to kind of wrap this. I want to thank our guests for coming out, Brett. It's always a pleasure to see you. You're welcome here at any time on the show.
Well, that's
Madness. I know I speak for Pops. Also, Dust Bunny Mafia is one of the sponsors of the network, so we're glad to have you.
Damn straight. That's how we do that. Yeah.
So on that note, Brett, thank you for coming out. Tanner, my co-host, my wingman, my right-hand man, Sergeant First Class, always a pleasure. And let's not forget
good to be here.
That we forgot to mention the E4 Mafia in the military.
Yeah, the E4 Mafia.
If it exists in the military and you need it, usually in the Navy, you go find a Filipino E4 and they can get it for you.
Oh yeah, any E4 specialist in the Army. Yeah, and what do they specialize in? Usually tactically acquiring missing equipment.
That was, I say it on the show all the time as a rip, but one of the guys that was part of the E4 Mafia, who was actually an E1, because he'd get promoted, he'd get busted, he'd get promoted, he'd get busted. He would say, if we ain't got it, we'll get it. When we get it, we'll funk it, ram it, jam it, damn it, pack it up, and take it out to your car, brother, whatever you do. So anyway, Tanner, thank you, Pops. Always great to have you chat. We love you. And we're out of here. Play us out of here, Pops.
Do I got to play stuff? Okay, I'll play stuff. Really, I want you to see this, though, Doc. This is my mood today.
Okay.
You see,
Yes.
That's my mood today.
I don't have the meme for it. I was going to, but
there you have it. Still sick and tired of being sick.
I cannot brain today. I has the dumb.
Dumb. Here we go. We got a little bit of Six Gun Gorilla.
Let's play it, baby.
In a world where creatures of myth and legend exist, a covert task force is charged with keeping humanity safe from supernatural threats. And when young Nancy Moon stumbles into the eternal battle between good and evil, she finds... Oh my God, will you shut up? What's happening? Agent Beckett here. Aren't you tired of stuff like that? Want something different? Roll the tape. Whoops. Sorry about that. That's a song I'm writing for my ex. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's more like it. Alrighty. Welcome to the world of the mythicals. We have it all. Monsters. Magic. Government agents. He's the strong silent type. This guy. Ugh, gross, dude. Get some kind of cream or something. Lots of 90s style action. Pew pew pew. And that strong female lead alluded to earlier. Not to mention a dashing field commander with a great sense of fashion. Look at those glasses. South River Studios presents The Mythicals, Issue 1. Buy it, if you dare. Ugh, will you can it already? How'd you get free? Now beat it before I lose my cool. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today. Like right now.
Sign up today on Indiegogo.
America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked Border Patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marcos' attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent, and very real battle of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
Bringing you sex, sass, and style. Buckle up and unlock your imagination for a fun adventure with these death-dealing dames. They sail the galaxy in search of spoils. The most dangerous acquisition, and the most fruitful, are the legendary Splinters of Yggdrasil. The Splinters are magical artifacts forged from the Tree of Life that wreak havoc on the universe. The missions are perilous, but the bounty is glorious. Enjoy our hyper-fictional wonderland. How is a pirate ship sailing through space? 'Cause magic. How do they heal so quickly after battle? 'Cause magic. How are they able to communicate through jewelry? 'Cause magic. It's all about the characters. Abo, rough, robotic, ready. Mo, carefree, callous, courageous. Mistress Graven, daring, diplomatic, dominating. Betsy, academic, accountable, aristocratic. Nefara, ancient, assured, adrenaline junkie. Bruto, proud, prominent, protective. Fisty, independent, incendiary, invigorating. Roxy, superficial, scarred, secretive. Once you get to know this diverse crew of mythical miscreants, you'll be anxious to find out what trouble they'll get into on the next episode. Go to abogrizzly.com and order both halves of the first episode today.
How do you end this thing? How do you put the where's the brakes on this bus? I forgot.
Jazz hands. Jazz hands are done.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals.